Hello, everyone. It's Friday, August 5th, nearly midnight, so let's just say this video is going to come out August 6th, though we keep it on the Saturdays. Um, Quite a lot of stuff actually going to be happening this week from what I've seen on the reviews. I took the liberty of highlighting different colors in here. Typically, I just go with green or blue. I decided to use aqua. What I'm going to use with that color is highlighting the pairs to keep an eye out for the strategy that I teach. Okay, those are going to be moving in a very positive trend, so to speak, and and they should be what's the word I'm looking for? Much more effective in hitting TPs throughout the week. Okay, first things first though, I'm going to jump in on NASDAQ quickly, and just on the 4-hour time frame, I don't want to go too far back. I want to show you what's happening and what is predicted to happen by me. Okay, so the bottom that we've seen was right here on June 16th, and it started to climb. Like, I got pretty close. I thought it was going to be the week prior, but we hit another bottom, so I just moved it over a little bit. If we're technical, it was right there. But anyway, so this has slowly been inching up, and my target has been around here since kind of middle of June, right? End of June. We're almost there. We got to a point where it was only about 180 points away from my target right there. That's an imbalance that's been sitting since May, beginning of May. Once we break that, I don't expect to be climbing another 850 points to break previous gaps that are this high. I expect us to be dropping pretty hard throughout the next few weeks, if not few months, down to probably this level right here, 10,267. Unlikely we're going to drop all the way down to 9,000. This is what the chart looks like, kind of drawn up in the long term, right? This is what is kind of predicted. This has been set up from me since here. Originally, it was around the May area where we hit these bottoms, and then we had a little bit of a rally. But it dropped a little bit further, so I just moved my absolute bottom over a little bit more, right? As you can see, it was here, but now it moved a couple of days, right? Overall, it's still around that same range. I wasn't expecting like that specific zone to be hit, but if we take a look here, right, as you can see, this gap was just filled before it started reversing. Right, and this gap was formed all the way, slowly scrolling right here. This gap was formed all the way in November of 2020. All right, and once that gap filled, it seemed to have rejected off of that area and went right back up. Okay, it did a quick climb throughout a week, pull back, and then a little consolidation for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then slow movement upwards. So I'll go into a little bit more detail with the stock video. There are a few developments because of this that I want to keep an eye on. Progeny, just to throw that out there, was a nice winner for me. I grabbed that and I enjoyed the nice 40% climb all day Friday. So, yay. But regardless of that, I'm going to, yeah, see, I have it up right here, Progeny. Regardless of that, I'm going to jump in quickly on the pairs that I have set up for the week. I'm not going to go over any of the ones that are highlighted light blue or aqua, only because that's based purely on trend and Fibonacci retracements. There are no institutionals or really solid kind of trade ideas to grab for, but it works very well with the strategy I developed. For the other sake of a name, it's called the Scholar Strategy. Imagine that. Anyway, so AUD-CAD. These are the two trade ideas I have drawn up. So if this drops a little bit further, and I think I didn't write a note on this one, but I'm going to be looking at the 4-hour time frame. And I'm just going to get rid of those. Okay, I'm going to be looking at the 4-hour time frame here. So two different trade ideas. One of them is more of the short term, right, from June all the way to now, so the last month and a half. Perfect fib retracement that happened right here. It even bounced off that 618 line perfectly. Like you can see that wick just touched it and then dropped right back down. So based on what I see here in the short term, this is probably the more viable trade to take. And of course, if it hits the stop loss, I'm going to be waiting until it climbs all the way up here for a deeper trade based off of this candle pattern. Oh, pardon me. It's late. What can I say? So yeah, that's the two spots that I'm going to be looking at. Right here, I'll just zoom in a little bit more. This is the one here. And just because of the way that this has been set up, I'm going to be looking more at the 1-hour time frame. As soon as this kind of shifts back down, so as you can see, even it didn't even want to close this gap here, just kind of rejected. Well, it was based on the previous volume here, right? So as you can see, if I take my volume bar and I draw it all the way to there, like that entire area, this is exactly where the volume's been heading the last 2 trading days, and then it started slowly dropping off, doing a little bit of a pullback, and they're going to be dropping further. So I expect this to drop from this area. It's not that likely that it's going to break through and hit the stop loss. I set it just a little higher of this candle, so I know that if it goes and breaks through that high, that I'm going to be looking at a different trade idea, which was, even if I use the 6-hour time frame, it's way up here, right? But this is what I'm expecting. I'm expecting this move. The one up there, it's more of a shot in the dark. It's a deeper retracement for a longer range, right? So if I switch to the daily, you have a better idea of where it's at. And it's an imbalance, or not an imbalance, but an institutional looking candle off of daily time frame, which isn't really optimal. I don't want to use those candle patterns off that high of a time frame because it doesn't really show movements within that day, right? It just shows 2 days worth of movements and they almost cancel each other out, right? I'm more interested in what's happening within the day and if there's major movement to really keep an eye on. Here you saw that there was like big wicks and candles, but they really closed each other off quite quickly. All right, so that's the trade idea for here. Euro GBP on the 4-hour time frame. So I'm going to switch right there, wrote myself notes this time. This is what I see. All right, so grabbing from all the way from July 1st, that previous high that we hit, could go even further back, but I'm just going to use the more recent one. July 1st, it hit a high, dropped down to this low, pulled back right at that 618. That's why I circled this. Dropped, made a new low. It's pulling back, and judging from what I've seen happen here, this is my target. I drew a volume, fixed range volume profile, right? This beautiful thing right here. And it's showing me the point of control, which is it bounced off of on Friday. But we have 2 extreme zones that has a potential of hitting. I do not believe we're going to get up to here because that's why we had this deep rejection and then it dropped further down and went. So I don't expect to actually make it to that extreme zone, but I do expect to make it to this one. It will, once it hits this area, I expect a little bit of consolidation, but I don't expect it to go much higher. Maybe it'll even play off this supply zone right here, like just touch and drop. So this is a very strong potential trade idea. I'll be looking at it around here, like right on that line. Not a very deep stop loss, maybe 40 pips. Right off that other extreme zone. Maybe it might touch it, maybe not. I don't expect it to. And then dropping a little further down for a potential 200 pip gain, maybe a little bit more. So that's almost a 5-to-1. And it seems perfectly viable. My only concern would be that in the grand scheme of things, if this already hit the retracement on the larger time frame, going all the way back from April, right? So if we go right there, to the peak, which is there, and I stretch it across, you can see that it hit that 718 and bounced up, right? So my only concern is that if it hits this area, the thing I'll be looking for actually would be an EMA shift, right? Because again, we're not playing off of any specific candle patterns. It's just kind of the overall technical analysis itself. So that is my area of interest right here. Not to say that I'll be taking the trade right on the line, but once it crosses that line, probably a sell stop would be the best bet for me to take. Okay, so that is Euro GBP. Moving on to Euro USD. I drew this up like, I want to say 2 weeks ago, maybe almost three, I think 3 weeks ago even. And it's just, look at this, it's just been crap, right? I drew up the idea when it hit that low. I'm like, okay, that's a nice rejection. And then 2 weeks of nothing. Like, this has just been garbage, right? You can see it's, what, 13 bars, so that's 17 days worth, right? If you include the weekends. 17 days worth, and it's just been going sideways. The only thing that is giving me clues that it will continue higher is the MACD, right? So this is still, it's got blue peaks on the histogram, but they are dropping off, right? You can see because of the bigger red candles, that's why it's forming those drops, those valleys. But the price line is still headed up regardless of the sideways movement. So this is telling me that it still has an interest to potentially hit this area, but I don't think that the price line is actually going to cross that zero here. So that would make like the perfect pattern to be able to take a sell on, right? Similar to how you see this happen. This kind of, as this was dropping off, the price line was still going up, and then it kind of peaked right there, right? And then the following candle was right here, and then it just started dropping off. Right, and then that drop itself, just to give you an example, just 2 candles worth, right, 200 pips. 200 pips in 2 days, right? So that's not too shabby. But that's, you know, at the end of that candle, you saw an EMA shift on the daily, which is a big deal, right? On the smaller time, I better not do that actually. Right, I guess I already did. My computer is really acting up, but it was around this area. So you can even see right at the end of that candle, that drop, potential pips to grab, right? What I say, 200? Yeah, even slightly more, 220, right? Depending on the time frame you look. And then right off that aqua, bounced off the aqua and rejected off it, but it went deeper a little later on. So yeah, I mean, Euro USD, I am expecting a slight move upwards still. And the reason being is because it's gonna, like, the US dollar really, NASDAQ goes opposite of whatever happens with that more often than not. So that's why when the NASDAQ climbs that final 200, 240 points to get to my target, that's why I'm expecting the US dollar to be slightly weak, maybe first couple of days of next week. Once that range is hit, I expect US to be very bullish and dropping or climbing depending on where it's at in its charts, right? So this is going to be a very viable trade to take. And this is what it looks like on the 4-hour time frame, right? I'm still expecting it to kind of close off that imbalance, hit that area, a pretty decent stop loss of 55 pips, and this trade will likely last a few weeks, maybe. I mean, ideally it would be maybe 1 week, but it's possible that when it gains momentum, it'll drop hard. But 1 to 2 weeks, I expect this to kind of play out. Hopefully it hits the zone next week. And finally, USD CHF. So this one kind of gives me one nice point of interest because on the 4-hour time frame, there has been 3 peaks, and the every peak is slightly lower than the previous one. And as you can see, right, this one, it was a nice big candle. This one, it was a larger wick, like half wick, half candle on the 4-hour time frame. This one was all wick, right? So if I switch it over to the 1 hour, that's the trade entry that I'm looking to take anyway. Okay, this is what it'll look like through that. So now that we hit this, I expect to take this trade on an EMA shift, and I'm going to take it on the 1 hour, only because it's going to be a little bit tighter to take as far as the trade goes, so I'd be able to snag a few more pips. Just got to be careful with the stop loss. So this might be one that I'm watching as the trade is actually entered. All right. But one thing that's showing me in this, I'll just switch back to the 4 hour for a larger view. Okay. If I take a look at the fib going from this peak right there to the drop, it's not even at the 50%, right? And it's struggling to break through that 50%. So that's showing me that there is very strong interest in this moving downwards, and it won't even come up to the 618 to retrace. Okay. And if it stops me out, it stops me out. You know, it happens occasionally. But as you can see, when we go all the way back to May, big peak, came close, didn't break it. This one was a 618 retracement, I believe. Maybe a little bit deeper, 786. Yeah, kind of in between those two zones, right? Before it started dropping, made a new low, right? But not by much. It was almost similar to what was happening here. And then, you know, slight move upwards, and then I believe it's going to be dropping further. If it does the fib retracement, it's going to come up to this area where there is a bit of supply that is drawing it, and then it'll drop further. That's why, again, I say when there's no candles to kind of gauge, excuse me, when there's no candles to gauge the entry, EMA shifts are your best bet to take. Okay. And as you can see, even on the 4 hour time frame, as they shift, this is a beautiful move down. Ever since it shifted here, it never actually crossed back. So as an example goes, right, at the end of this one, stop loss of 19 pips is all you would have needed, you know, but like I said, 40 pips is kind of the safe bet. So at the end of that candle closes, 40 pips, you know, and then your 66 pips in profit at that point. I'm like, you know what, on an EMA shift, I'll set it to break even. Let's see where it goes. All right, and then look, never crossed, came close, never crossed, came close, never crossed, and then finally crossed. So exit would be there, 261 pips over 18 days. I think it's a little much for being in a trade for nearly 3 weeks, right? So, but regardless, very simple. Once that shift happened, and you know, very easy to gauge that Fibonacci retracement. It kind of bounced off, shifted, very good potential for it to continue going down, right? And it just so happened to work out. But regardless of that fact, this is what I see on the 4 hour. Let's switch it over to the daily. And all the daily is showing me right now is several peaks, right? And it's about to switch upwards. So again, be very cautious on this one. It could just potentially run up all the way to that 618. I don't believe we're going to be making new highs. As you can see, I made flags, right, on these golden lines here. And now look what happened with these rejections. May 16th, came close, rejected. June 15th, came close, rejected. Right? And then they reject straight down, and they kind of hover around, you know, just below, kind of between this one and the aqua down here, and then goes back up, goes back down, slightly lower, right? Goes up, but it doesn't go up to the next one. It just wicks off of the second yellow line. So now what happens is we dropped a little bit lower. Now, for 3 days, it wicked off the third yellow line. So this is kind of the reason why I'm thinking, hey, you know what, there's very good signs. It's showing that it's not going to be going deeper for now. It's quite possible that this will drop. So that's my basis for the trade ideas for the week. I would say out of the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, possibly Euro USD is still kind of my favorite for the time being, only because there's actually a candle pattern to go off of, and it works perfectly with the Fibonacci, right? So, and it crosses right on that aqua. So I mean, there's 3 indicators showing me that entry zone. The rest of them have slightly less, like AUD CAD, for example. We don't have candle pattern really to look for because this already played out, right? You see that hit the 50% there, but it's going based off of fibs and lines as well. So you can see this golden line right there just kind of crossed and right back in. Now it's testing it again, and it will probably drop. Right, but that's two out of the previous three, so it's a less, not as strong of a play, weaker play. Euro GBP, just to recap that again, no candle pattern to look for. This is just fib retracement levels, and it's been very consistent based on extreme zones. So I'm liking this trade, but for other reasons. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty wicky. I mean, as you can see, it's been happening quite often. This might be a little bit choppy to get into. So, as far as confidence, this one is probably a little less, maybe around 60% confident it'll work out the way it does. AUD CAD around 80%. Euro USD maybe 90% that it'll work out exactly as planned. Right? And the final one is USD CHF, which again, triple top and the three lines, right? So this one works out in my favor with two indicators actually, right? So fib line, not so much. I mean, we have the triple top and we have the golden line that it's rejecting from, right? So even fewer indicators. So I think overall Euro USD is probably the strongest choice out of the four. But yeah, I mean, all still pretty viable. And just a little gem from last week. This was quite a nice gain, right? Quick trade, 30 pip stop loss, almost triggered. That was pretty tight. But yeah, it dropped and hit TP for 222. So that's a 7.5 to 1 ratio, and that was a 3-day trade. Excellent, worked out nicely. All right, and then just want to show GBP CAD is still in. It worked out exactly as planned, right? Through that yellow zone, this set up even on the 618. So 2 of 3 indicators that I went off before, and it's been dropping. Currently, it is 128 pips in profit. It went all the way to 238 at one point, but yeah, the big candles right here kind of got screwy. But even as you see on the 4-hour, there hasn't been an EMA shift, even though that there's been chunky candles going this way. This is still in good shape to keep dropping. So yeah, I mean, definite potential for this to keep going. Right, as you can see, it's rejecting off of that white EMA line, and off of the 1-hour, it is just rejecting off that 987, right, which is the black line. So that is, 1 hour, you could still see there it shifted downwards, even though that after this big candle started climbing, but it only climbed to that 50% mark or slightly higher of this giant imbalance, and now it's starting to drop, right? So one TP hit trade, the other trade is still going right now. It is, what did I have the stop loss set at? 60 approximately, and it's currently 125, so this is already 2 to 1. Can get out of the trade at this point and still a win, right? But right now this trade is set at a break even. GBP AUD unfortunately did not work out. It went way higher than expected, and yeah, stopped me out. So that's too bad, because this one even had a candle pattern to play off of on the 4-hour. Right, it was off that imbalance there. That's what I played it off, and then it formed an imbalance going through the imbalance. So it kind of sucks, but what can you do, right? And then unfortunately, it's been a lot more volatile because it smoked that way upwards. But look, it formed a double top, right? And then it dropped, and then another big wick, and up it goes, right? And then if it was set at break even, it would have broken even though. Right? Let's say you would have gotten in after it started dropping. To be up 191 pips only for it to break even, that's rough. Right? So this, even though it looked good, this was a pretty shit trade. Right? I'm going to delete that, and goodbye GBP AUD. I learned my lesson with you, and I don't like you anymore. Okay, so that's that. I hope that this video has been informative. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe, yada yada. I'll see you next week.